Wild for the Weekend is sponsored by the following supporters.
Hopcop Premium Meats are third generation BC farmers, roaming pasture-fed non-GMO grain-finished cattle with no added hormones and steroids. We source local produce and specialty grocery selections located on Old Dewdney Trunk Road in Pitt Meadows. hopcopmeats.ca.
Hello everyone and welcome to Wild for the Weekend. Today we're going to play with some beautiful forage-fed beef, and we're going to make some kofta, really lovely kofta, nice in a beautiful rich tomato sauce. And then we're going to make our own pizza dough with our lovely organic hand ground flour, and we're going to do our lovely ground beef pizza with broccolini, a really light, beautiful Saturday lunch dish. Come back and join me in a minute or two on Wild for the Weekend. Welcome back to Wild for the Weekend, and today we are working with beautiful ground beef. We're going to start off today with a dish called a kofta, which is basically a sausage that's made without a skin. It comes from the North African, kind of Moroccan area. I really love this dish because it's nice and simple. It's a really good brunch dish. Actually, and once we're making it, at the end of it, if you added eggs into it, just raw, and poached them off in the tomato sauce, it'd be just stunning. But first, let's get going. We'll put our little skillet onto the heat, and in our bowl, I have some extra lean ground beef. And I'm going to add to that some finely chopped red onion. You want about half a cup of red onion to go into there. And then I'm going to add mint, about a tablespoon half of chopped fresh mint, really lovely and light, and will give it such a beautiful, beautiful flavor. And then we're going to add some coriander, just some chopped coriander, and some fresh chopped tomatoes. And we've seeded these tomatoes, not skinned them, but seeded them, because I don't want that water in the kofta. And all you do is beautiful clean hands and mix it around. This beef that we're using today, it comes from my my little family butcher, who I just adore, and it's a big thing. I want you to get to know your food, get to know your butcher. It's a big deal for me this year. And really focus in on the food that you're getting, find out where it's coming from and what it's being fed. The great thing about this beef that we're using is that it's all beautiful roaming feed, and is finished on beautiful non-GMO grain here in the Lower Mainland. So, into our skillet, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil, about a tablespoon of olive oil, and then take the little sausage koftas and just sit them in that olive oil. That'll come up to heat in just 2 seconds. So you're forming them. You want about about a half a cup in measurement. So you want to form your kofta into these beautiful sausage shapes, and you're going to end up with about 8 from this batch. You want them all to be roughly the same size. It's really simple. I actually make this kind of sausage for breakfast, whether it's beef, chicken, or pork. On a Sunday morning, I love this with pork. It's such a simple thing to do. So just put it into your hand and roll it into a lovely sausage. And we're just browning them off in this skillet just now. We're going to kind of sear them, and we want to give them a little bit of a brown color, because we're going to put a sauce in there and cook them in the sauce. And if you don't give them color before you cook them in the sauce, they're going to be kind of pale beef blobs, and you don't really want that. You want it to be nice and beautiful brown, golden brown color. So our kofta are in our skillet. I'll put this over here and just rinse my hands. My handy dandy little towel. So to that, we're going to add some lovely jalapeno pepper. Just allow that, and we want that to release in the oil just ever so slightly, or release that oil from the jalapeno pepper. Allow that sap to go into the oil, and it'll be soaked up into all of the lovely food that we're cooking. You can put these on small sticks as well if you want, and have them cooked, but I like them this way so that we can use them. They're simpler to cook. I'm going to put a little bit of garlic, a clove of garlic in there, just to give it some flavor, and then a little bit of cane sugar. What the cane sugar does is it takes all of the acid that we're going to use and release in these tomatoes. It takes that acid and it gives it a lovely, round, soft, unctuous flavor. It takes that sharp acid bite away from tomatoes, and if you don't cook tomatoes for long enough, they have that sharp acidic taste. The sugar takes that away. Into our skillet goes our tomatoes. And what I do with them now, everything gets a little turn, just so that we can have that nice color coming through. And we cook these for about 15 minutes. And in that 15-minute period of time, the tomatoes will break down and come a really gorgeous, lovely flavor. We're going to add some black pepper to this, cracked black pepper. And I'm going to add a little bit of fleur de sel at the moment. This is just a plain fleur de sel, and you know our fleur de sel comes from Salt Spring Island, and we're all over it. It gets brought up from thousands of feet deep and dried, and the flavor of this fleur de sel is just beautiful. In fact, when you crush it, we were just talking about this earlier on the set, when you crush it, it's left on your fingers, and you get that lovely briny saltiness on your fingers. I don't know if you can see that. If I leave my hand there, you can see that beautiful briny saltiness on your fingers. It gives it a lovely sheen, and you really feel like you've used the fleur de sel when you use it, and I just love that within food. So we're going to bring that back up to a simmer and allow that to cook for about 15 minutes, and when it cooks, it'll soak in all of that lovely flavor, and we'll be able to serve it. Right, so our beautiful kofta have been cooking. I cleaned my counter up a little bit while it cooked away, and we've had it a good 10, 12 minutes in there. The sauce is beginning to thicken up, so what we're going to do is we're going to serve and garnish. I love this dish so much. I can't tell you, it really is a really warming, comforting dish. So, first thing that I do is I take out the kofta and just put them into my dish. And if you want to put skewers in them, now would be a good time to put the skewers in. You can have them hanging out the side of the bowl. But I love serving it this way with the beautiful kofta, and then this gorgeous, really beautiful tomato sauce on top. And we've cooked it. It's gotten, some of that jus is still left in there, so it's got a lovely, a soft flavor. I'm going to give it a very, very quick taste because I want to just taste that sugar and the sel. I want to make sure that that blend is really good. And don't be frightened of salt in the tomato sauce. The tomato really wants that salt. It really wants to pull out the flavor. So I've put a little bit more in there just to bring that out. We want to reach that umami stage, that beautiful balance of flavor. So our sauce is finished, goes on top of our kofta, just like that. Put it like that, gorgeous. And we're going to garnish this with a little bit of chopped parsley. Just a rough chop. We don't want to have anything too fancy. This is a nice country dish, so nice and light. All the beautiful minerals and nutrients that come out of this roaming beef really allow it to have a nice sweet flavor. It works so well with these tomatoes. But because we put that pepper in there, that hot pepper in there, it's going to have a little bit of a sting to it, which is going to be just lovely. So a little bit of the chopped cilantro on top. And to the top of that, we're going to add some buttons of yogurt. This is just a Greek yogurt. And I just put little buttons of it on top, just as a garnish. And it also allows us to have that gorgeous spicy note in the kofta, and it keeps our palate nice and fresh when we eat it, because that sour cream will give us a lovely creamy coating onto our palate, which takes the heat away. They're always saying if you eat something hot, drink a little bit of milk or eat a piece of bread. Don't drink beer. It's not the thing that just activates it some more. So here's our gorgeous kofta in our tomato sauce. Really light, very, very beautiful dish. When we come back, we're going to work some more with our roaming beef, and we're going to make our own pizza dough and create our own little pizza. Join us again in a few minutes on Wild for the Weekend.
Wild for the Weekend is sponsored by the following supporters.
Hopcop Premium Meats are third-generation BC farmers, roaming pasture-fed, non-GMO, grain-finished cattle with no added hormones and steroids. We source local produce and specialty grocery selections located on Old Dewdney Trunk Road in Pitt Meadows. hopcopmeats.ca. West Coast Wild Foods, foraged wild mushrooms and truffles harvested from the Northwest Territories to southern BC. westcoastwildfoods.com, a wild foods company.
Mobile Bandit is an app that helps you find local deals on your smartphone. Downloadable on all devices and no membership is required. Visit mobilebandit.com for more info. Golden Ears Cheeseworks, artisan cheese made in the Fraser Valley. Golden Ears Cheeseworks, cheese made with the family farm milk. 3-year cheddar, Yorkshire Blue, and Brie. Hagensport Chocolates is a boutique Vancouver-based chocolate company that has been producing European chocolate since 2006. Pure Verona chocolate. Third generation family farm in the Fraser Valley. Fraser Valley Specialty Poultry has free-range duck and goose, duck sausage and smoked duck breast, organic chicken and ground duck patties. Fraser Valley Specialty Poultry in Chilliwack, BC. fvdg.com.
Anita's Organic Flour and Mixes has over 20 years providing whole grain products from Canadian farmers. Anita's is certified organic grains, flour, cereals, mixes and sprouted products. Their granite stone mills and low temperature milling preserve the nutrition for whole grain food. AnitasOrganic.com.
Welcome back to Wild for the Weekend, where we're playing with beautiful beef today, but we're going to play with a little bit of gorgeous sprouted red fife flour because we're going to make our own pizza dough. We're going to do a beautiful pizza now, and I want to make our own dough. So this is a sprouted red fife whole wheat flour, really good. Now the reason I want you to use sprouted flour instead of regular flour is the vitamin content is 100 times more in a sprouted flour than it is in a regular flour. And all they do, where I get this beautiful organic flour, you can go to my website and check out where I get this from. They basically allow it to sprout and stop it immediately and then grind it down. So it's a really beautiful flour, really huge. So to that, I'm going to add about a tablespoon and a half of olive oil. A little bit of salt, fleur de sel. I'm going to put in just a plain one. I'm not going to put a colored one in because we're not going to see it. So I just want it for a little bit of flavor. And to that, I put a teaspoon of active yeast into some warm water and had it in here, so it's with a little bit of sugar, so it's all bubbling and active now. We're going to pour that into our flour, and then you're just going to mix that around and make a very soft, loose dough. Really, really nice, soft, loose dough. When it is all mixed together and you've let it sit, let's just move these out of the way, you've let it sit for about an hour, it'll look like this, and it'll have a very soft, nice texture. So, to play with this, I'm just going to basically knock it out of the bowl, put a little bit of flour on top. I don't want to roll this. I'm just pressing this out. I want this pizza to be kind of country and rough, so we're just pressing this dough out. You want to press it to about 1/4 of an inch. Not too thin, but not too thick either. And as I'm pressing, I'm just stretching it out. Okay, now is the time if you wanted to add some colored cell to put it on the edges. And all we're going to do with that dough, once we've gotten that flattened out, is we're going to put it onto our baking sheet. And when we come back in just a minute and a half, we're going to make the topping for this with gorgeous roaming beef and some broccolini. So join us in just a moment or two for some more Wild for the Weekend and beef pizza.
Wild for the Weekend is sponsored by the following supporters.
Popcop Premium Meats are third generation BC farmers, roaming pasture-fed non-GMO grain-finished cattle with no added hormones and steroids. We source local produce and specialty grocery selections located on Old Dewdney Trunk Road in Pitt Meadows. popcopmeats.ca. West Coast Wild Foods, foraged wild mushrooms and truffles harvested from the Northwest Territories to southern BC. westcoastwildfoods.com, a wild foods company.
Mobile Bandit is an app that helps you find local deals on your smartphone. Downloadable on all devices and no membership is required. Visit mobilebandit.com for more info. Golden Ears Cheeseworks, artisan cheese made in the Fraser Valley. Golden Ears Cheeseworks, cheese made with the family farm milk. 3-year cheddar,
Yorkshire Blue, and Brie. Hagensport Chocolates is a boutique Vancouver-based chocolate company that has been producing European chocolate since 2006. Pure Verona chocolate.
Third generation family farm in the Fraser Valley. Fraser Valley Specialty Poultry has free-range duck and goose, duck sausage and smoked duck breast, organic chicken and ground duck patties. Fraser Valley Specialty Poultry in Chilliwack, BC. fvdg.com.
Anita's Organic Flour and Mixes has over 20 years providing whole grain products from Canadian farmers. Anita's is certified organic grains, flour, cereals, mixes and sprouted products. Their granite stone mills and low temperature milling preserve the nutrition for whole grain food. AnitasOrganic.com.
Welcome back to Wild for the Weekend. We are going to play, as promised, with some pizza. I really like this. So first, we've got a lot to do in this segment, so I really want to get started on it. So the very first thing I'm going to do is add into the skillet about a tablespoon and a half of olive oil. And to that, I'm going to add our beautiful ground beef. We're going to cook this about 60%. We're going to allow most of the moisture to come out and evaporate and dry out a little so that when we put it on the pizza, it's not all soggy and horrible. So you want to crumble it. That's quite a key thing, to crumble it. While it's cooking in the skillet, I'm going to add some allspice to it. The allspice will give it a beautiful, really rich, not a Christmassy flavor, but a really rich, orientally kind of gorgeous flavor. And we're going to add some paprika as well. So allspice and paprika into that beef. And those are the only two seasonings we're going to add to the beef. No more. And we're just going to basically chop the ground beef down because you want it to be crumbly. In Britain, we call this mince. And over here, it's just ground beef. But this is the element we want, each of the individual elements of the ground beef to cook. And so to do that, we have to break them up in the skillet. Now, a little bit of the history on the beef that we're using. Originally, the beef that we use was brought to Europe in about 1493, and then later came to the Americas. Actually, 1611 was a huge year for beef to come into Jamestown, and two varieties of cattle went to Jamestown, and that was the start of husbanding and farming of beef in the Americas, in the North Americas. The South Americas has had it for a long time, but it hadn't come up. So it's very interesting that it actually came over with the English through Jamestown. But, you know, pharaohs for 6,000 to 7,000 years we've been eating beef, and we've been keeping them in our homes in that period of time. In fact, in Britain, just recently, they found the oldest, there's a 3,000-year-old wheel, and was just recently found the last few days. And in the little house that they found that wheel in, they actually found a little pen for their animals. And so Bronze Age people were raising cattle and keeping them, but they didn't keep them in separate barns. They actually kept them in their own house through little pony walls, and they were members of your family. So they were all together. We're going to cook this down just until it's beautiful and cooked through golden brown, and then we're going to start topping our pizza. So our beef has cooked to that 60–70% that I wanted. You couldn't serve this just now. It's still a little bit rare, but it's going to be perfect because what we're going to do is we're going to build our pizza and pop it in the oven so it'll finish cooking it. We don't want it to dry out, but we don't want to add too much moisture. So our pre-pressed pizza dough that we had, we're going to take a tomato sauce, whatever tomato sauce you like. In fact, if you don't like tomato sauce, put any sauce that you love on this. I have done HP sauce, I have done a meat sauce, I have done a cream sauce. Any sauce that you want on the pizza is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter. I like the tomato only because it will balance with the beef really well. So put a little bit of your sauce on. And really, we're only putting sauce on the pizza. I learned this when I was in Italy. This is basically a seal between the dough and what's going on top. And it's the only real reason that you put the sauce on the dough. So to the top of that, we're going to add I'm just going to turn that off. We're going to add some of our beef. So I'm just going to take it, and I want to drain it. I don't want all of the fat to come on to the pizza, so I'm going to drain it while I'm doing it. And again, we've only added those 2 spices into this beef, so it has a lovely soft flavor. It has the sweetness from that being foraging, but it has a lovely soft flavor that will be really nice with the broccolini and the rest of the ingredients that we're putting on. So, coat the base of our pizza with our ground beef. Here we go. Now, to the top of that, we're going to add some red onion. I like to use the red onion. It's slightly sweeter than the white onion. Has a nice, so if it's not cooked through thoroughly, it will still have a lovely flavor. But the heat from the beef should be enough, and the moisture should be enough to cook this through. So, not too many, but some on top. On top of that, actually first, on top of that, we're going to put the broccolini. So the broccolini, really easy. All I did was dropped it into boiling water for about a minute and a half, literally just to shock it. And we don't want to do that because we want to just allow it to soften up and not be too kind of crisp and hard. So just take your broccolinis and lay them on. You see how they've gotten a little bit limp? That's just from the poaching. So your broccolini's on top. I like to do it so that I have some heads in the middle, some heads on the outside. I don't like to do it too all symmetrical. There we go. To the top of that, I'm going to add some Noor dates, and these are just beautiful, firm, gorgeous Noor dates. They have a lovely, rich, kind of jammy quality when they warm up, and they're going to make this, give it a real luxurious element to our palate. Really what we're doing here is we're taking the crispness from the dough and the gorgeous soft creaminess from the cheese and making it jammy by adding these dates in there. And the dates work so well with this beef because, again, they have a slightly sweet but not very sweet taste. A little bit of fleur de sel on top of that, just to give it a little bit of flavor. And then our mozzarella, just spread all over. You don't want to put too much on here. People often put an awful lot of cheese on top of a pizza. You don't really need an awful lot of cheese on top of the pizza. You're basically giving it a coating and giving it a lovely caramel. You don't really want to sog it and have all that fat drained down. This goes into a 450-degree oven for about 12 to 14 minutes. Our pizza has been cooking in the oven, bubbling and getting gorgeous. I've tidied up our counter just a little bit so that we can prepare it for service. So, grab our beautiful pizza out of the oven. Really nice. Let's just make sure that the dough isn't stuck to the side of the tray, because I've done that once before, tried to lift it off, spent 10 minutes on camera and looking stupid, so let's not do that twice. Okay, bring your pizza over to our board. Top tip on cutting pizza, I learned this when I was training with Boston Pizza International, is to think of it as a clock and cut 12 till 6, 9 till 3, and then do wedges from that. So when you start, go straight through 12 till 6, 9 to 3. Oh, this dough just cuts beautifully. And then just take each one of these and cut them diagonally. Pizza, very interestingly, pizza, not invented by the Italians at all, actually came from Asia. And pizza wasn't originally served in this manner. It was actually folded up and eaten as a sandwich. Breads, pastries, and all these kinds of things are really casings for food. They only became edible in about the last 100, 150 years or so. Before that, they were really used just as housing for meats and cheeses, potatoes, things like that. But they weren't used and consumed. And it was when the flour started getting more fine and the technique started refining it that we started eating the pastry. But before that, pastry was literally used to hold things. It wasn't used to eat. A prime example of that are things like Cornish pasties, and all of those kind of things are all just basically hard water pastries used for housing the meat. When I serve my pizza, usually I just leave it on the board, paper et al. I might put a tiny little bit of cracked black pepper. Could somebody hand me that peppercorn, please? Some cracked black pepper on top of it. And I love that just because that natural oil. And the oil that comes from a cracked black pepper lines our colon as men. Not as women, but as men. And it aids us in stopping getting colon cancer. So a little bit of cracked black pepper. No garnish, no creams, no sauces, nothing else on that. And that is our pizza ready. I've really loved cooking this for you today, and really enjoyed having our foraging beef. We've really getting into some of the techniques using this foraging beef. Really remember, talk to your butcher, find out your butcher's name. Mine's called Mike. I love him dearly. A very handsome man who has amazing ability to cut down a carcass. So really talk to them and find out about the beef. You can use more inexpensive cuts of a quality butcher and attain really beautiful results with a healthy benefit. Join me again next time on Wild for the Weekend, where we do a little more wild cooking. Thanks. Bye-bye.